All right. Now, we are going to break down our nervous system into some subcategories. As I mentioned, this is where the complication comes in because look at this chart. There's a lot going on here. It's busy. All right. And we're going to break down the main functions that you should be aware of. So, as I mentioned, we have our central and peripheral nervous systems. And remember, central originates from the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral comes from some of the cranial nerves and the spinal cord. It goes to the various different other systems of the body and relays information back and forth. So, peripheral nervous system is where things get complicated because central nervous system, it's only one box. We can see that, and we just see integrative functions. And that's just our processing of this information. You guys are sitting here listening to this video. You are trying to make connections. Think your central nervous system or for that processing. But looking at our peripheral nervous system, it's going to be broken down into multiple subcategories. So the first two that we can break it down into are sensory functions and our motor functions. So sensory functions, again, as I mentioned, detecting pain, detecting changes in temperature, those would be considered sensory. You become hungry and you feel your stomach grumbling. That, again, is a sense of some type. When you look at the screen and you're reading that information, that's sensory. You listen to my voice and you hear my voice, that's sensory as well. Then we have our motor function. So the action, so movement, activity. And motor function ends up being broken down into two subcategories. Okay. The first one that we will discuss is our somatic nervous system. This is also known as our voluntary skeletal muscle movement. So your legs, your arms, your hands, so on and so forth. You think about using these. You move the mouse to open the video to watch. You got up this morning, you walked to the bathroom. Then we have our autonomic nervous system. So this affects our smooth muscle in our digestive system, our cardiac muscle, so regulating heart rate up and down, and even some glands. So stimulating the adrenal glands to release cortisol when we're stressed, release endorphins in our brain when we experience a pleasurable stimuli, and we start associating positive and negative things that way. But we do not consciously control our autonomic system. That's why it's termed autonomic. It's automatic in nature. So when you're digesting food, you're not thinking to yourself, okay, intestines, I need you to soak up the nutrients. No. The only thing you really do when we're digesting is chewing the food up and swallowing it. The rest is under control from automatic systems within our body. And then, because things aren't any more complicated, autonomic gets broken down into other subsections: sympathetic and parasympathetic. In other words, fight or flight and rest and digest. And these are very important for you guys to be familiar with. And we're going to break these down and how they will work together with each other, so don't panic. But just know when we're talking about motor functions, we need to differentiate from our skeletal muscle from smooth muscle cardiac muscle, because you can't just say motor functions and be like, oh yeah, we understand which category you're talking about. So make sure you're descriptive when you're talking about which aspects of the motor functions that you are discussing. All right, now let's break down the somatic nervous system. This is a little bit simpler because this is simply moving, lifting objects, walking, running, so on and so forth. So this is our somatic nervous system, and it utilizes somatic nerve fibers. And these are fibers that come from the spinal cord. So we have our muscle here, then we have some sensory here going on. So let's say you're outside and it's hot. I'm making this video when we're going into summer, so it's hot. So you're outside, you're having a good time, and you just feel sweaty. You feel the sun just beating down on you. You haven't really been in the shade that much. Hopefully you've been wearing your sunscreen. And your skin is detecting this change in temperature. So we have a sensory nerve fiber labeled in green here, and it's sending information to our spinal cord, and it's going to relay that to our brain. And that's where we're starting to process, okay, I'm hot, I need to get out of the heat and cool off. So you sit there and you start to consciously think, yeah, I need to find shade, I need to get inside, or I need to go jump in a pool, something like that. So your brain processes this information and you think about whatever movement you want to do. So let's say you're going to go walk indoors somewhere. So you consciously think to yourself, all right, I'm going to walk into the house and cool off. So following this purple fiber, that information is leaving the spinal cord and going to the skeletal muscle. So you are actively thinking that you need to walk inside. So this aspect is conducting impulses from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscle. So I'm reiterating, conscious thought of doing a specific activity is going on with this. And just a reminder, this is known as your voluntary nervous system, and you have that conscious control over this muscle. Next up, in the next video, I'm going to break down the sympathetic and parasympathetic, because that does require a little bit time on its own. But don't panic. We have some good pictures that kind of help you organize it.